Hi guys, and welcome back to a special extended edition of Laws of the Game, the vlog that explores contemporary sports law issues. Now this is the first vlog that we're doing on our new YouTube channel, so if you do enjoy today's video, please do click like and subscribe. Now for many, 2020 has been a god-awful year, so rather than looking back, in today's episode we'll be looking forward to 2021 and asking what does it have in store for sports law. First up, let's start with everyone's favourite topic after coronavirus, Brexit. Brexit and the associated changes to the immigration rules is going to fundamentally change the way athletes and players can move to England. From January 2021, all overseas players will need to demonstrate their eligibility via a points-based system, which will take into account the following factors: the number of games a player has played for their national team and the FIFA ranking of a player's national team. In addition to this, English clubs will be forbidden from recruiting foreign players under the age of 18, and will be limited on the number of 18 to 21-year-olds from overseas that they can sign. Okay, so how will this point system work? Firstly, all overseas players will need to meet the FA's criteria for what's known as a Governing Body Endorsement, or GBE. Now there are two main routes for obtaining a GBE. First is the automatic qualification route, and second is the non-automatic route. The automatic qualification route requires players to have played in a certain percentage of their national team's games in the past 2 years. The percentage of games required depends on the FIFA ranking of the player's home nation. For national teams ranked in the top 10, the player must have participated in 30% of his national team's games in the past 2 years. If the national team is ranked between 11th and 20th, it's 40%. For 21 to 30, it's 60%. And for national teams that are ranked between 31st and 50th in the world, it's 70%. For those that are unable to meet the automatic qualification route, there is another route, but this requires a different set of criteria. Now this includes the number of appearances made in domestic, national and continental competitions, the standard of the league that the player's domestic team plays in, and how well the selling club performed in the previous season. Now, as with any law, there are some complicating factors, including how to obtain a visa, and also an exceptions panel who deal with extenuating circumstances, but these are outside of the scope of today's vlog. Okay, so now we know how this point system works, but what effect will this have? Now these changes will have two main effects. On the one hand, it will be harder for English clubs to bring in European talent, who previously had the right to work in the UK under the EU rules of free movement. However, on the other hand, it will be much easier for English clubs to bring in non-EU talent than it was previously. Many see these changes as a positive thing, in particular in attracting talent from key territories such as Africa or South America, who produce some incredible talent, but traditionally have found it quite difficult to move these players to the UK. For others, these changes are less welcome. For example, clubs will no longer be able to sign players under the age of 18 from the EU. Now this could have a significant impact on those who benefit from scouting top young European talent, such as Chelsea. On the whole, my view is that these changes are positive. They provide a more equal basis for attracting talent, as well as affording greater clarity and greater flexibility than under the previous system. Now the second key trend for 2021 is the growth in multi-club ownership in football. Now for those that don't know, multi-club ownership is where one individual or company has control, influence or ownership over 2 or more clubs. This model looks set to dominate the next chapter of football around the world. According to UEFA's 2017 Club Licensing Benchmarking Report, there were 26 First Division clubs with cross-ownership relations with football clubs around the world, and this figure is on the rise. Back in episode 13, we discussed how the City Football Group had acquired a majority stake in India's Mumbai City FC. At the time, the deal meant that the City Football Group held a majority stake in Manchester City, New York City and Melbourne City, as well as minority shareholdings in Girona, Yokohama and China's Sichuan. In May 2020, the City Football Group agreed a deal to acquire a majority stake in Lommel SK, who sit in the Belgian 2nd Division. They then went on to acquire a staggering 10th club in September 2020. But it's not only the City Football Group that are exploring multi-club ownership. Other examples include Watford's owners, who also own Udinese in Italy, and also Leicester City's owners, whose name I won't try to pronounce, who own a club in Belgium's top division. From a footballing perspective, multi-club ownership can allow clubs to share talent, best practice, expertise and know-how to improve the club's performances both on and off the pitch. Larger clubs are able to develop up-and-coming talent who can lend them to satellite clubs who can give them the playing time that they need. Now, an example of this type of relationship is that between French club Lille and also the Belgian club Royal Excel Mouscron. In the 2020-21 season, over 12 players have moved between the two sides on loans or free transfers. From an investment perspective, multi-club ownership allows owners to diversify their brand, as we've seen with Red Bull, diversify their portfolio, and gain exposure in key territories. So now we know why multi-club ownership is on the rise, but what's the regulatory position? Now, part of the reason that some people feel apprehensive about the growth of this model is that they fear this could lead to conflicts of interest and could damage the integrity of competitions and clubs. Now, the FIFA rules do not expressly prohibit this type of model. However, they do contain general provisions which, if interpreted broadly, could cause problems for entities and owners of multiple clubs. On a competition level, many competition organisers, such as the Premier League or UEFA, include provisions which restrict multi-club ownership. However, these are often limited to the instances where the two clubs compete in the same competition. Now, you may have noticed that the City Football Group's clubs are predominantly based in different jurisdictions. Now, part of the reason for this is to prevent the two clubs competing in the same competition. Now, my prediction is that as multi-club ownership becomes more and more popular, these types of relationships and ownership models will come under increased scrutiny from football's regulators. Now, going forwards, clubs will need to ensure that they have appropriate structural and governance safeguards to avoid public criticism and regulatory sanctions. Now, the third and final key trend that we're going to be focusing on today is the challenge to the financial and the political structure of football. Now, 2020 saw two potentially monumental challenges to the footballing status quo. First, we had Project Big Picture, a proposal led by Liverpool and Man United to radically restructure the Premier League. And then we had the rumoured emergence of a European Super League. Now, not since the establishment of the Premier League back in 1992 have we seen such a fundamental challenge to the political and financial structure of football. Now, whilst these conversations have died down in recent weeks, I expect them to reach a crescendo in the new year, albeit potentially under a different format. Wait a second, what were the proposals under Project Big Picture in the European Super League? Project Big Picture was all about restructuring where power resides. It had a number of key proposals, including reducing the Premier League from 20 teams to 18, putting power in the hands of 9 clubs that have been in the Premier League the longest, including the Big Six, plus Tottenham, Southampton and West Ham, an upfront payment of £250 million to the EFL, plus a £100 million payment to the FA, and a proposal that 25% of the Premier League's revenue would go to EFL clubs, and this is up from the current position of 4%. But what about the European Super League? Now, the European Super League was a proposal for Europe's top clubs to break away from their respective divisions and to form this new Super League. Now, this would effectively replace the Champions League. Okay, so why are these conversations not over? Coronavirus has acted as a magnifying glass, intensifying the financial pressures that clubs in the lower tiers face, and also bringing into sharp focus the unwelcome truth that we'd all inadvertently blurred from our collective vision, that the financial model of football in its current guise is unsustainable. Whilst 2018-19 saw Premier League clubs' revenue increase to $5 billion, many in the EFL are struggling to stay afloat. Now, one of the great appeals of Project Big Picture, despite its obvious flaws, is that EFL clubs would receive 25% of all future Premier League deals. Towards the end of 2020, the Premier League announced an agreement with the EFL for a £50 million bailout for clubs in League One and League Two, and a £200 million loan facility for clubs in the Championship. But for many, this won't even touch the sides. Football is crying out for a redistribution of wealth, and if changes don't come in soon, many fear that certain household names will no longer be able to survive. In my view, football reform is coming whether you like it or not. It's only a matter of time. All we can say for now is watch this space. I've been Sports Law Tom, and this is Laws of the Game.